Hi everyone, welcome to Reinforce, AWS's first security conference. My name is Kunal Batra, I'm a senior technical evangelist here, and we have an awesome group of people here. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Nate Case. I'm one of our security specialists here at AWS, and I'm currently working on a workshop with Mosdef in the other room.
Awesome.
Cool.
Brandon?
Hey everyone, I'm Brandon. I'm a technical evangelist at AWS, and you've probably seen me on camera sometime, hopefully.
So for this session, we're going to be talking about detective controls, and we have our esteemed guest here who can break that down for us. So why don't you start with defining it first, and we can go into the individual services.
All right, so if we think about detective controls, we're going to think about things that will obviously detect stuff, right?
Right.
So when we talk about things in security like detective controls, realistically we're talking about a set of things. It's not just detective controls. It's going to be preventative controls and responsive controls. So we've got preventative. We're not going to let you in because you're a bad person. You scare us, right?
Come on. Okay.
It is what it is.
Okay.
And then if we fail at the preventative, we want to be able to detect that you've actually come in and done something.
Okay.
So cool. And then we want to be able to respond to that thing and make sure that, hey, you know what? You really shouldn't be making S3 buckets public.
Yep.
We're going to go ahead and make sure you don't anymore.
Yeah.
And we're going to take care of that bucket and make it go away.
So now one of the themes here was automation, right? So we don't want people doing this manually, right? We don't want
Ideally,
engineers,
no.
people looking through their logs to make sure this is happening.
Yeah.
What kind of tools do we have that let that happen?
So right now, obviously, you've got Lambda. A lot of people use Lambda to do the responsive controls portions of things, right? We have a nice gentleman from Discover here, Kyle Sheldon, who's going to talk about a product that they have called Warden.
Okay.
And that's kind of one of those things that you can build yourself, and a lot of people do. And they go ahead and build the detective controls that we've talked about, right?
Right.
That are going to detect when you've actually done something to an account or when something happens in your application.
Okay.
And then we're going to build the responsive controls to come back and fix that.
Got it.
And it's going to be Lambda, it's going to be SSM. We're going to talk about step functions maybe.
Okay. And so now, do any of the other tools we have, like Guard Duty or Macy or Security, are these part of this?
Those are all like built into, so when we say detective controls,
right,
those are the things that are detectives.
Okay.
So we've got a really good slide in a presentation that I don't have for you. That's actually on the far left over here where we have all of the detective pieces that we have. We've got Macy, we've got CloudTrail, we've got VPC flow logs. Okay. We've got Guard Duty, obviously. We've got Security Hub in the future. I guess it just released everywhere pretty much today. Yesterday, yeah. That's pretty cool.
Awesome. So then we have, you mentioned the preventative, and then we have the remediation. Tell me more about the remediation steps. How does that work?
Okay. So remediation is kind of one of those things where, like, as an SA, as somebody that's going to come in and help, like if we're pretending you are our client and he's our hacker, right? We're going to come in and talk to you about governance first, because I don't want to just automatically start remediating the heck out of things and all of a sudden the CFO finds out that his QuickBooks server is gone.
Right.
SAP is kind of an important thing. We really don't want to deprovision that automatically.
Right.
So as we look at this, we really have to have a conversation around governance and figure out what are you going to do and how are you going to do it, and what does it mean for you? If you happen to be in California, if you happen to be in Europe, some of those questions, some of those things actually are a little different.
Okay.
So we have to figure out whether you care about attribution, whether you care about data governance and sovereignty. And as we go forward, then do you actually care about finding out who did something in your system? A lot of times it turns out to be an individual who didn't mean anything maliciously. Mm-hmm. We like to think about it as the coffee-soaked admin, somebody that's been up for 72 hours and really meant entirely well and accidentally deleted your VPC. Oops. But things like that happen, and we have to make sure that we have the governance in place to understand what we as a corporate entity want to do to respond to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. And any specific examples or use cases that you have in mind that you want to mention that you've seen our customers do that are kind of cool using detective controls?
So one of the things I get to do as my job is actually help our customers with incident response. So our customers will call up and we have some internal programs that will actually go out and help them and deal with that incident and help them deal with that incident and help them deal with the ramifications of it. And part of that is looking at their architectures and understanding, this could have been better or maybe we should have done this instead to try to get them to the point where they're more stable. But one of the things I see most in that role is actually we posted our credentials to GitHub.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I'm talking like 80% of the time maybe.
Yeah.
And it really is one of those things where a guy named Henrik in AWS actually did a wonderful bit of scripting with a team. It's called Get Secrets. And I think he did it like 2 years ago.
Okay.
But it actually adds on to your GitHub posts, and it validates that as you're posting this stuff, whether or not there are any AWS secrets in that GitHub post, and stops it from posting.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is ideal.
One of the things we saw in the keynote today was adding it to your pipeline, right? So your CI/CD pipeline, like this will obviously prevent that, right? When it's over there.
Yeah, I actually took Henrik's stuff and then reprovisioned it as Python. So if you go on, I think it's on my LinkedIn page.
Nice.
If you go look at LinkedIn, I've got like this little like 2-liner of Python that says, okay, I'm going ahead and building your app, and you know what? Oh, good Lord, you've got this, AWS key, and we gotta stop that right now.
Got it. So can we talk a little bit more about the individual services? So I think what you're talking about here is that Macy something that would do something like that?
Macy would do something like that. Macy will generate something that you can then react to. Guard duty is one that I've talked about quite a bit. We've got a wonderful list of findings that you can get out of guard duty. And Security Hub now, you've got a bunch of findings and insights that will give you kind of an idea. The insights are kind of cool because it's kind of a conjoining of 2 or 3 different log sources and giving you kind of a corporate idea of, hey, you know what, you've logged in from New York for the past 3 weeks, and that's cool, but all of a sudden you're logging in from, some country that is not near New York, and we don't know where the heck you are, but you're not on vacation, and what do we do, and is this a big deal? Well, you started deleting buckets, well, maybe we've got an issue. This is abnormal actions for you.
Got it. And so this is Security Hub. Is this like a dashboard that's just aggregating tons of data?
It's aggregating all of the different sources that we would have gotten out of guard duty, but it's adding some other things like Inspector and Macy and whatnot.
There's also 29 different partners that are currently integrated with Security Hub, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
And one of the cool things about it is that all of those services, all of these things that are collecting data, have their own way of ranking that and sorting it, right? And as part of how you set up Security Hub, you actually normalize those findings against one another, so it becomes one dashboard where you know exactly what the highest priority compliance checks that are failing are, no matter what system they're coming from, which is really cool.
I think the compliance checks, the CIS benchmarks, for instance, are really neat in Security Hub.
Yes, the automatic compliance checks are super, super cool. I turned it on my account and immediately had a list of things to go clean up. And that's even having people like you at AWS already emailing me when I'm doing things wrong. So it found some stuff. It was good to know.
And to be fair, I do that in my own stuff. To be fair, as a developer, and I think a lot of us have actually been developers before, you get in a situation and you're banging away at the code and you've got to get it done by X, and you're just pounding on that keyboard. And I'll just do this real quick. And it's that I'll do this real quick bit that always gets you in the end.
Yep, absolutely.
But
so thinking about this, you said that you work a lot directly with AWS customers, help them figure out how to improve their security footing from an architecture standpoint and those sorts of things. If you had one piece of advice to give to someone who's considering their security journey in the cloud, what is the piece of advice you would give them?
Okay, so you guys know what well-architected is, right?
Yeah, but maybe you should explain it for our viewers that might not know.
So well-architected is a service that we actually offer as SAs, and we will send an SA, potentially a security specialist SA, out to you to talk to you about your specific application and architecture. And that gives us the ability to sit down with you and look at best practices and try to understand what you could have done differently or what was done perfectly. And a lot of times it's 90% of this app is just spot on. You are 100% correct. Good job. You've got this little bit over here that maybe we would do things a little differently, and you've got some questions right here, and maybe you ought to look at how you're doing that. And maybe that one thing right there is actually really important. And when we start looking at stuff like that, I, as the incident responder, tend to look at it from the point of view of incident response. On that day, on that Monday morning when you've posted your stuff to GitHub or something else happens, and our wonderful hacker over here has gotten into your account, how did that go, right? Did you expect this to happen? Did you not expect this to happen? Was the data encrypted? Did you deal with privacy by design to begin with or not? And if you did, then cool. And if we do it at the beginning of the application review, if we're looking at it from a well-architected review before you go production, right? Then we can go ahead and make those changes, and it's really easy. So I think go do well-architected, take a look at that, understand with your SA what that's going to look like, and make sure you do it before you get to the production stage. Because after you get to the production stage, it just gets a lot harder to help.
So to boil that down, it's basically start thinking about security as soon as possible.
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh, DevSecOps, man. Everything's got to be DevSecOps.
Ah, man, I was glad to see during the keynote that they people laughed at that, and he put that up on the presentation, and I was worried for a minute that we were going to start embracing that. I don't know, too many portmanteaus, too many trying to It's important to have security be infused throughout your culture. It's not a DevSecOps person's responsibility to make sure that.
No, I had a really nice company once try to give me the title of AVP of SecOps or AVP of DevOps. And it was, I think you're not getting the point. I think we've missed the edge here. This is not right. But yeah, I think we do it very differently. And that really comes into this concept of, we had a way that we worked 20 years ago, and we had a way that we worked 5 years ago, and we've all started beginning to embrace this whole DevOps culture, and that's awesome. And that means that we're going to start looking at architecture, and when we do that, we have to make sure that we look at that architecture in such a way that we're going to build the security in long term. Because generally people come to me and say, well, I put a firewall in front of it. And that doesn't, I'm glad you got a firewall there, but the real issue is that somebody put USBs in your parking lot. It has nothing to do with the cloud or anything else. And we have to make sure that that business process is actually handled correctly. And we've got another really nice slide that I don't have here that shows this whole DevSecOps journey where we're looking at it not from this concept of the business is up here and we've got development pulling one way and we've got security pulling the other way and operations pulling the other way and oh my God, it's all going to fall apart. But rather from the point of view of a wheel. So we like to talk about our flywheels and the way we work. But when you look at DevSecOps, we're really looking at a full wheel that is the business and we need to help the business go forward. We can't be the office of no anymore. We have to be able to sit there and actually drive that business forward with you as the developer, not the hacker, sorry.
Yeah, and something that I've seen, and obviously I can't speak for all of the developers out there, but something that I've seen shifting in the last few years is people are not thinking about security as something that's imposed on them by their administrative... It's now part. Well, it depends. Some companies are certainly at other stages of this journey, but I think most of the developers, especially the ones that like to self-serve, the ones that are thinking in a cloud way, are actually looking at things like Security Hub, Guard Duty, Macy, any of these compliance checks that help make them be compliant as a developer without having to worry about it. And they're starting to realize, wow, these tools actually make our business better as a whole, and I think there's starting to be less of that conflict.
I would argue that that's great. I think the problem is that we have a lot of C-level or CISO level individuals that are acting in businesses right now that get really concerned, like, I don't understand what that is. And to be fair, that's what the SAs, specifically the security specialist SAs, are there to help them with. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're specifically there to go out and help you, the CISO, and say, look, this is where you're at. I get where you're at. I get that you're looking at Macy. I get that you're looking at Security Hub. This is what it does. And there's a lot of issues there where we just need to be in there to have that conversation.
The other question I have for you is the landscape's changing, right?
Oh,
so
God, yes.
serverless now is obviously much bigger than what it's ever been in the past. We have containers now. How is security adapting with these new?
So I would tell you that I think that that's the epitome of what we just said. If we look at the serverless world, the container world, and we look at security, we can continue to throw firewalls in front of stuff and firewalls between stuff. And when we get to containerization and we get to serverless, how much did that actually help you? I mean, there's definitely help there, right? I mean, you had to have that firewall, absolutely, that had to be there. But at the same time, you look at that and go, well, I mean, realistically, we should have been doing security way back here. And we're doing a talk later this afternoon, 2:30, Franz Rosen and I, on this concept of where is hacking going, where is the threat going, how do we deal with that going forward? And one of the things we'll bring up is basically the lunch app. And I worked with a company that had an issue, and basically they had a lunchroom app. And when you went ahead and ordered your lunch, it went back to the HR system and pulled your SSN, and it put your social security number next to your lunch. And it's like, oh my God, why did you do that? But at the same time, it was easy, right? The developer went, I need a list of employees, I'm just going to go grab that. It's right there. And they did. And now we have your SSN associated with your hamburger. Not really what we want to do.
Needs a little bit more blockchain, I think. That's the one thing it's missing.
No more blockchain for that, no. But you get the point.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely.
No, it makes sense. So where do customers go to learn more about these topics or detecting controls or how they can get started?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a wonderful section of white papers. Josh Dulac and I just finished up the incident response white paper. It went out in June, I think, or May, I think, maybe. So we've got that. Josh just did a blog on incident response and planning. There's also a couple of teams that are getting ready to produce a handful of white papers. And we have a number of talks and online stuff that we've done historically. You can Google and look us all up on YouTube.
Awesome. Very cool. And I guess before we let you go, any parting thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on the keynote? Anything that you want to bring up or talk about?
So I'm going to be honest.
Honest.
Okay. I didn't get to see the keynote because we were getting ready for a workshop.
So you loved it.
I loved it. It was great.
Perfect. It was perfect.
I actually got to see where they called out the global roadshow that we're going to do with April Sharp, and got to see her jump up and down and be really excited about having Stephen Schmidt mention her global roadshow. So, which is cool. They're actually going to go around to different global large cities, and some of us, even me, actually are going to get to go to a couple of these cities and give some of the talks that we give here. Globally, so we're trying to spread things out a little bit.
So where can people go to find out what cities that roadshow is going to?
I believe the website.
Okay.
I don't know offhand.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. Well, I guess.
Cool.
Any parting thoughts when it comes to Reinforce? What do you hope attendees here leave knowing?
I think my constant response to that is, I really just want to give people something to navigate towards. None of this is easy to do.
Yeah.
I mean, DevSecOps, is easy. We're just going to go turn that on next week, right?
Yeah.
No. And that's one of those things where it's way out there. We just have to keep moving towards that point, and we'll get there eventually. Yeah. It's the journey, not the end.
Great. All right.
Cool.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, everyone online. Take care.